Wonderful. So the way I would wish to start is I would just like to give a brief introduction about myself. I work in M Junction Services Limited, an e-commerce organization, and which is also a joint venture of Tata Steel and Steel Authority. So you are aware of e-commerce organizations? M Junction started its business way back in 2001. And from there on, the organization has grown in stature and size. Luckily, I had joined this organization around 2004 when the organization was just kind of forming up. And I had been a part of this journey of all organization building, a kind of a member, from a member to a significant member, and then someone who has a say in the strategy. So I've seen an organization's growth path, though M Junction is kind of to grow more, but I've seen an organization growth path. I've seen the challenges, and I've seen the various ways companies sort of approach talent retention. It differs from company to company, depends on which industry it is in. The telecom industry has its own set of challenges. The IT industry has its own set of challenges. The e-commerce industry has its own set of challenges. M Junction is very unique in that way. M Junction is very unique in that way that in an organization called M Junction, there are multiple views which are various diverse in nature. So I cannot have a retention strategy, while I can have a larger retention strategy at the corporate level. At the business unit level, I need to have retention strategies which are sort of dovetail with the requirements of the BU. Because my BUs are different, my workforce demographics is slightly different, the aspiration of the various workforce are slightly different. So while I can have a large overriding organization strategy, at the business unit level, it varies from business unit to business unit. Here, while I'll take the session, I've kept it slightly less on the PPT. I'll discuss more because I think that's the best way to learn. So here, well, I'll discuss on the overall organization strategy. But having said that, I'll also speak of some of the BU specific strategies which we take, which other organizations take. And at the same time, at last, when we have the question and answer session, it will be a good opportunity for us to learn from each other once again. So having said so, I move to my first slide. Yeah. So what is employee retention? Very academic, but I feel it's extremely important. A process where employees are encouraged to remain in the organization for a maximum period of time. Look, whenever I have looked at retention, I've looked at it in two ways. People move either because there is a pull or there is a push. A pull is from the market, which is there, the larger market, which is ready to attract skills like us, the larger market, which is ready to attract people like us, and the pull would always continue. There would be, in a bad scenario, there would be a drag in the pull. In a good scenario, the pull would be very strong. When IT had come in, they had swept the best of talents into their pool. When telecom had come in, they had swept the best of talents in the pool. Pull would always be there. It might vary. At sometimes it might reach a peak. At sometimes it might reach a nadir. It depends. So keeping that in mind, my point is pull and push are important. Push is important and pull is important. You cannot beat the pull. Pull will always be there. But can you beat the push? And what is push? Push is when you force employee to look for other opportunities. When through your talent retention strategy, you are not perhaps able to attract, or you not be able to perhaps provide the right kind of intervention through and basis which people start looking out in an organization. In that case, no matter what the pull is, people will still come. No matter what the pull is, people will still move away. So if you can sort of ensure, so your talent retention strategy would basically ensure that your push is mitigated and your pull, the pull which is in the market is there, which is beyond you, but your push is mitigated in such a way that people would like to stay back in an organization. Pull is extraneous, push is internal. Look at the push factor. Can you do something about the push factor? My entire discussion would be on the push factor. The first thing of employee retention is respect. You need to respect an individual. And I come from the group company. Respect and self-dignity is very important. The levers of retention can be many, but if you do not respect people, if you do not respect their voice, if you do not respect their abilities, no matter whatever intervention you do, it will all fail. The second is recognition, a special attention of accomplishments. And the third is rewards. Rewards are the extra perks which go beyond the basics of respect and recognition, which go beyond the call of duty. So if you, so this I call the 3 R's of employee retention. Respect is critical. You can give a person a huge salary, you can give a person a huge perk, but if you do not respect him as an individual, sooner or later he will leave you. If that would not have been the case, then organizations which are very high paying organizations would have necessarily had kept all the resources with them. They would not have had such a high attrition rate. Respect, recognition, and reward. I would put recognition and reward as one integrated part, but respect is the first, and I would put respect as a basic hygiene of employee retention. Basic hygiene of employee retention. Go to the next one. Why do we need employee retention? Many a times, my leadership team tells me we have an attrition of around 10%, partly because of the fact that we are in Calcutta, though our branches are, we have branches at every place, but I would still put that partly because we are in Calcutta, and partly because of the fact that some of the policies are good for us. But at times I'm asked by people, is attrition bad? I have a yes and a no both. Attrition is good, but depends on which kind of people are leaving for you. And attrition is bad again, depends on which kind of people are leaving for you. So when you do an exit analysis and see the slices of people, if people having stayed for a significant period of time, and when it's time for them to give back to the organization, because there's a learning curve in every organization, and if they leave at that point of time, it's really a problem for you. If they are stars or shining stars in leaving, that's an area of concern for you. So you have spent plenty of time in grooming in talents. Please do not waste them. High retention can help the organization in building goodwill of the company. Goodwill as in, there's something called a brand. The product has a brand, the employer also has a brand. So you ask, should I go there? Is it a good organization to work in? What's the kind of life cycle people have? These are the common questions you ask. And when you say that, a company with a good retention policy will always stand out compared to the others. Next one. Yeah. Why employees leave? Very often, very discussed, often repeated statement. The answer, there cannot be only one set of answers for this. Sorry, I have given a few, but there can be much more than all this. They leave because they fail to connect with their bosses as leaders and people. They leave because work environment is not particularly friendly. They leave when they do not feel appreciated. They leave when managers do not listen to them. They leave when they limited career growth or opportunity. Now let's look at the first set. Failure to connect with their bosses as leaders and people. As boss, you are also a builder of talents. You are a people manager. As boss, you are not only expected to get the work done, but it is also how you get the work done. What is the style of getting the work done? Work environment. Work environment is important because at the end of the day, we spend 12 hours in office, 10 to 12 hours in office. Work environment is, it's a second home for us. You need to have the environment which would be a key enabler for your success. You need to have an environment which is conducive for your work. So work environment is extremely important. When they do not feel appreciated, you might say, I have an increment, I have a variable, fine. But appreciation can be real time. Appreciation can be a pat on the back. Appreciation can be a thank you card. I know of company, and this now has become a very common practice. If someone has done well, just write, thank you, great work done. That small card from the manager, or from the co-employee to that boss, or from the boss to the co-employee, or from the reporting manager to his subordinate, can make a lot of difference. How often do we say thank you for the good work done? Recognition, let them feel that they're being appreciated for a good work done. We are very clear when it comes to putting the dagger, saying you have not done a good work. But is it not important also to say that you have done a good work. So what's the harm? A real-time recognition, just telling them that you care for them, their work is important for the organization, their work has a great role to play in the organization's success. I think that's a great feeling. So please appreciate your people when they have done a good job. It might be very small, it might be incremental. Don't worry. If they have done a good job, let them know that you have done a good job. As at the same time, when you let them know that they have not done a good job, it is important to let them know that you have done a good job. And that should be more often than not. Positive strokes are extremely important. If you remember, and I go back to those days because of school classroom learning, etc. When we were kids and when we used to do well, and when our teacher used to give good, very good in our exercise book, that was some kind of a treasure for us. We used to come back and show to our parents that, look, I've got a very good and good. That was a kind of, that's called law of reinforcement. You are reinforcing that he has learned well, and through that he will learn more because he's now energized to do it. I know the guys who join us are not kids, but at the same time, it's human emotion. We always long for and we always care for that extra bit of appreciation. There's nothing wrong in that. What's the harm in giving that little bit of appreciation if it works? And be real when you say something. People can make out. People can make out. If you have facade, people can still make out. Be real, be genuine in appreciating if you feel that there's good work. Managers do not listen to employees. I know managers are tight pressed, they're hard pressed in time. They have leadership positions to fulfill. Time is a premium element, but can we spend some time in listening to employees? I'll come to some of the practices which we do, something called a skip level process. A wonderful process, but that I will come at a later point. But what if I listen to my people? Listening does not mean that I'll have to do what they want, or listening doesn't mean that I can immediately implement what has been discussed, because every organization has a framework, every organization has a budget. It's not that if I wish I can change the compensation by a dozen, but can it happen? It cannot happen that way. But what if I sort of listen to the people? Listening skills are very important. Limited career growth or opportunity. I think the entire world is struggling. So it's a very motherhood statement over here. Career pathing, growth, job roles is an area where HR folks are working. I don't think we have been able to come out. Some organizations have tried, but career growth and opportunity in an exit analysis, you'll find more than often than not. Lack of respect for supervisor, which is there. People do not respect you and hence leave you. They say that people do not leave organization, they leave their bosses. So if they don't find that from you or from me, there's something to be learned. And look, today's world is the world of millennials, correct? They're smart, they're techie, they're on the cutting edge of HR technology, they know what it is, and they would expect you that, boss, kuch to sikhao. Don't be an administrative layer, be something where you can sort of help people to learn. So command respect is an old phenomena. Now you need to have respect through your actions. If I see my boss adds value to me in terms of advice, in terms of certain things, then obviously my respect for him grows up. And if I find that he tells me to go and look at the red books in the website, the yellow books, the white books, it's good. It's good once or twice, but every time if I go and refer to him or her, and I get this answer, then there's a problem, boss. There's a problem, and which I need to learn. And disrespect for a boss superior is extremely harmful. Higher compensation, I think that needs a huge study. Is compensation everything? Gallup, who is famous, they had done a Q12 questionnaire, and they had cited 12 questions. Compensation was not there in that question, because as I told you, compensation can always be that there is someone up in the market who is paying better than you. What is important is, are you paying an equitable compensation? In the sense, are you fair in judging your compensation? Are you fair with your performance standards? And if you are fair with your performance standards, is it translating to the compensation? So that is important. That is absolutely important. Higher compensation, I don't think is the word. Compensation has to be aligned internally as well as externally. Internally, are we doing a fair job? Are people in the same job families more or less paid the same, given the performance is the same for all of them? Is the appraisal system equitable? Is the appraisal system fair? That's important. Compensation as word is more than compensation as a word. I think the compensation administration, the process of compensation determination, and the process of rewarding through compensation is very important. Feeling that job duties are unchallenging, important, very important. It's not always possible to give the best of jobs to everyone, but once or twice, take them through certain projects if you have, apart from their regular work. That helps the person to learn. Extremely important. Feeling that supervisor lacked leadership skills, again, I told you, you cannot command respect. You will have to do it and demonstrate. Only then people will sort of take you as a superior. You can be a superior through the organization hierarchy, but superiority through the organization hierarchy does not stay. It will only, they will keep shut in front of you, but then they'll start looking for other opportunities in other organizations or within your organization in other roles. Better work hours, I would say today's world is on a flexi mode. मेरा काम करना है. How you do it, it's up to you. The world has gone absolutely, the world has evolved in that. Then the timesheets are there, the logins are there. You are flexible to work the way you want it, provided you complete the work in timelines. These are new age practices, and every organization is trying to catch up to it. This is some of the levers which I spoke of: appropriate working conditions, attractive compensation, development plans. Now, if you look at the word compensation, organization must demonstrate the ability for a fair and attractive compensation. A compensation which is fair, a compensation which does not have bias, a compensation which stems from the appraisal process, a compensation which has some kind of alignment with the market. Now, I might say I would like to peg M junction at the 50th percentile. Some would like to say I would like to peg M junction at the 75th percentile. That depends. But as long as I'm fair to individuals, I think people do not have a complaint. And if you are trying to catch up with the market, you can do it once in 2 years, but the market will always be, there will always be some better players. You need to improve certain other things to make the world a better place to live in, to make your organization a better place to live in. However, your perceived ability in taking fair calls on compensation, it would be very important and critical for people, because the world is watching and news spread very fast. In spite of confidentiality and everything, news spread very fast. Now let's come to this practice. This is extremely important, and this is something which we also do. Look, what are my levers for attracting, for retention? So I retain talents. And how do I retain talents? I can retain talent through various ways. One of the way would be performance bonus. Second way could be a very fair compensation. The third way can be reward and recognition. Fourth way can be certain customized benefits for the team. The fifth way can be a great learning opportunity. Now, these are my various levers. As an organization, I might not pull all the levers for everyone. Depending on who requires that kind of a lever, you would, for example, an R&D scientist would, or a guy who is on the new business cell is looking out for new challenges, is looking out for new knowledge. Well, knowledge is required for everyone, but his requirement might be something different. Can you address it? One needs to move from that mindset of a one size shoe size fits all. That doesn't happen anymore. It has to be customized depending on the individual. For example, I was recently reading through some of the articles and I found it of great interest. Organizations are moving away from the annual increment concept. They're saying annual increment is annual. You work for 12 months and then you go to get an increment. And how do you know you have worked consistently for the 12 months? You can have a high or a low. So let's do something which is, let's have performance monitoring, performance review discussions month on month. And at the end, if you decide on an increment, It can be, it might not necessarily be increment on the CTC. It can be that someone is looking forward to a trip in a particular state, country. So you give him that value, an equivalence to an increment value. A 10% increment or a 10% of the same value in terms of a trip is the same for him. He would like to accept the second one. Why do you give him increment for everyone? Do you know? So when we go to buy a shirt, if there are 5 people buying, I might buy a Louis Philippe Sport. Someone might buy a Turtle Formals. Someone might buy a Vanu in different form shade. So if the choices and needs of different people are different, why are we assuming that 800,000 lakh of minds which come to workplace, their needs are same? We HR have sort of come into the practice and have started believing that the requirement is same. In a multi-brand retail shop, you would find people with different kind of sets, different kind of preference, different kind of choice. These same people, when it comes to workplace, how do we assume that all these different colors of expectation, different choices have all been merged and it's only one expectation? That's the fundamental mistake we are making. That's where we are, and that's where evolved companies are moving away from the age-old practice. They're trying to understand, so what is the demographics of my organization? What is the age group of my organization? What is the geographical spread of my organization? And rewards would be based on that. The archaic practice of giving an increment, I'll not say archaic, but I would still say that's a practice which is slightly dated. The recent practice is look at employees as your customers and find out what their needs are. Their needs, your reward has to be customized. If you want to retain people, rewards has to be customized. You cannot have a one shoe size fits all. Then it will, you can run the program. People might still stay in a bad time, but in a good time, people will leave you. And never measure attrition or retention percentage as a measure of your success. High attrition might not mean that you are doing all things incorrectly. It can be that there's a sudden market speed which has happened. Similarly, low attrition similarly doesn't mean anything. Low attrition doesn't mean that your practices are excellent. Low attrition can mean that there's a market which is there, but the market is not as of now in a position to absorb new skills. So I have always believed in, and I've started believing it more strongly when I interact with people, that my reward strategy would be based on the different needs of people. Some might need a holiday trip because his wife has been wanting it for so long. Giving a 10% increment on a CTC doesn't make that. So you calculate the 10% quantum value and give him that. If his CTC is 30 lakhs and give him 10%, which is 3 lakh, and he goes there and enjoys a trip, what's the problem? Because that is perhaps what his family needs. He's not, someone is looking for an insurance for self, which is life insurance. Give him that value, but please make it customized. Please do it depending on the age, requirement, and nature of the BU. Do not make one reward strategy for all. Communications. How often I hear when I sit, and how often it is true that good things and bad things are not always good things and bad things. They are how you package communication. You can package your communication, and when I say package communication, I'm not saying you say wrong things, you say sugar-coated things. When I say package communication, I'm saying that the message should be very clear. What is that what I wanted, and what is I have done, and why I have done. These 3 things. What was the ask? Why? What was the requirement of the organization? What did you do? What was your intervention? What was the objective? And what have you finally done? Communication plays a very critical role in HR. I have seen excellent HR principles, excellent HR policies have been rolled out, but basis a lack of good communication, I have seen them being drained out. Very recently, we were trying to recast our compensation strategy, and we were seeing that in my compensation strategy, my variable A is a high variable, and B it's a part of the CTC. So since being into part of CTC, it was difficult for us to make a differentiation for the people. because it's a part of the CTC. Because they said that if you do not give me my variable, it's a part of CTC. Why will you not give it to me? So we decided, let's be very clear about it. We need to come out from this variable within the CTC. We need to have a fixed pay and we need to have a variable. Variable is not for everyone. Variable would be for, obviously it is for everyone, but it does not become binding on the organization to pay that variable because it is no more a part of CTC. And then you can really differentiate between good, excellent, and the superlatives. There are plenty of presentations which had happened, and then when we finally rolled it out, we did it through a series of communications. But what came out was that there were plenty of apprehensions within the mind of people. And it made me learn that while I had been discussing and while we had been working on the leadership team to come out with this policy, once it was approved, we should have taken it to the next level. We should have taken it to the next level and should have told people as to what is in it for you. By taking variable out of the CTC, I am increasing their fixed pay, which means I am reducing the risk of payment. But at the same time, I'm expecting them that the good old days of expecting the 100% variable is no more there. You'll have to stretch yourself. Rewards can be high, but you might not. But the downside is that there might not be rewards for everyone. But from an employee's perspective, I've sort of protected a significant part of his fixed pay, which was earlier in a part of his variable. So when it was rolled out, it took some time to get settled. And it made me realize that it is a good work which we had done. People had a complaint of a high CTC, high variable. People had a complaint of low fixed pay. We had addressed that, but in spite of the fact, our message did not go well with the people. And when I say our message did not go well with the people, by that I mean my message to the people was not well articulated. Had it been well articulated, had it gone through various phases, various workshops, I am sure we would have done a better exercise. I firmly believe that in HR, communication plays a very important role, and we should not shy away from communication. We should be very clear about communication, very transparent about communication. Reward and recognition I spoke of. I'll come to job design later, and I'll come to equal opportunities later. Just hold on for a second. I'll go to the next slide. So fun at workplace. I don't think that's very important, but in an organization like us, where there are plenty of branches across the country, and in HO majority of the people sit, what is important is not fun, but what is important is that the branches which are far away are felt or are given a feeling that they are a part of the HO. The benefits of the branches should not be anywhere less than the benefits at the workplace should be anywhere. Branches should be comparable to the benefits you give to HO. I do not say have fun, but work should be fun itself, and the benefits should be equal. You should not make people feel who are at the branches that they are a neglected crop. You need to make them feel that they are as much as a part of HO as you are. So what is important is not fun. What is important is a policy which is impersonal, a policy which caters to your regions, to your branches, to your HO as much as they do to other places. Reward recognition. I spoke of compensation design. I'll now speak of something called a non-monetary reward. I spoke of a thank you card. I'll now speak of something called a spot reward, which we have in an organization like us. And what is that spot reward? You do well, create some kind of parameters. Like in M Junction, in our organization, we have innovation, customer service, going that extra mile. These are three categories for which a superior can nominate you for a reward. Create those parameters, define those time parameters, and if you feel that your employee has done this, reward him immediately. Tell HR that give him 500 straight line points, his points will be uploaded. It's very clear. You should not wait for rewards and recognitions to happen at the last moment, at the end of 1 month. If you find someone is doing well, reward him instantaneously. This is called a spot reward program. A spot reward program can be very important, very powerful, and we should ensure that a spot reward program is there. You also need to at times take a dip. Is my spot reward working? So maybe at one point of time, couple of times, or one more than once, you ask the people, did it make you feel happy getting a spot reward? Did you feel that your efforts were appreciated? So when you design a policy, it's good to have a policy, but always do be in the cycle of PDCA, which in TBM language in the Tata Group, it's called ADLI, which is approach, deployment, learning, and integration. You first define an approach, how you would like to address this problem, then deploy it. Approach and deployment would take you up through some learnings. And then with that learning which you acquire, integrate it with your approach once again so that you come out with a foolproof process. So they call it the ADLI process. And I like this word. It's very similar to PDCA, plan, do, check, act. But here they call it ADLI. At every point of time, there's an approach, there's a deployment, there's a learning, and there's an integration back to the approach. It's very clear. Absolutely clear. And there's no two ways about it. It's very simple. Do it. If you develop a strategy, please revisit the strategy once in every 1 year or 2 years. So it's coming to spot reward. Spot rewards work. Spot rewards really work. Thank you cards work. Spot rewards work. If an immediate recognition for a good work done can spur an employee. So if you have a spot reward program, I'm sure it is running well. See how it works. Try to measure the efficacy, and if required, do some kind of a tweaking if required. Now I come to two important things. One is job design and one is equal opportunity practices. Job design, we have been talking a lot. We have been talking a lot. Big groups talk it. HR practitioners talk job design. What is job design? For me, a job design is one which gives you a challenging and interesting work. But is it possible for an organization to keep on producing challenging and interesting work? Is it possible? I think it's not possible for him. If I go and tell my boss every day, boss, come make it more challenging. And there's a limit to it, how much challenging he can make. So, important thing is that the learning opportunities are there within the job, and there is a process of job rotation. The job rotation process would help you to acquire new skills. So when you move from your comfort zone away to a new job B, when you move to that job B, you have no idea of the job, correct? And through that process, you learn, and that doesn't mean that HR goes to marketing or marketing comes to HR. There are principles of job rotation. There's also a period. You do not rotate a people after spending 1 year in a job. A person takes to learn 1.5 years. He starts delivering for the next 1.5 years. So 4 years is a good time after which you can sort of, if he's looking for an opportunity, create that opportunity for him in a structured framework. But why do I say job rotation is important? Because in the new job, the person starts all from zero once again. And that starting all from zero once again helps the individual to think laterally, helps the individual to stimulate, and this is what is challenging job. So I know organizations, big organizations, and quite a few of you are Infosys and other organizations. Even in HR, they have various roles. They have HR Center of Excellence, they have HR Vertical Specialists, they have HR Heads for business partners, they have HR Heads for countries. So, and each role is distinctly different from the other. And so, when you rotate an HR guy also, you can rotate him within those functions. But that's the advantage which big companies enjoy because of the size. What happens to mid-sized organizations? Mid-sized organizations would not have that flexibility of rotating a HR resource in this manner. So mid-sized organization can do something either through job rotation, and if there's a specialist function like HR, finance, technology, then they can add something to the job. If I'm good in HR, maybe I look after admin, or maybe I look after one business unit. My core is HR. I do not leave HR out, but I get something added to it. And that is what is called job design. For me, every job has 3 elements, and that is the basis of which job is typically evaluated in a classical job evaluation framework, which is challenge, complexity, and accountability. Am I accountable for my job? To what extent I am accountable? Is my job complex? And how do you measure complexity? Are my people sitting at dispersed locations, or are my people sitting at the same location? Imagine a manager sitting here with his reporters in South Africa, Southeast Asia, SAARC countries, and then he's expected to get the work done. And imagine a guy who has his reporters just next building, which will be a more difficult job. The guy who is his reporters outside the country is a place far apart, because that's a remote kind of operations that does not have, that requires a special kind of skill. So this is so important. So this is what job design is all about. So this is accountability, this is complexity, the challenge of the job. The challenge of the job can emanate from many things. The challenge can emanate from size. A recruiter used to recruit 50 in a month. The recruiter is now given to recruit 5,000 in a month or 500 in a month. The challenge is completely different. The requirement of the job is completely different. But as I said, not every organization can provide such an opportunity. And when I speak, I do not only look at a big organization, I'm looking at more at the challenge of the mid-sized organization. What will they do? For them, maybe keep the anchor unchanged and then add some more roles to it, add some more jobs to it, provided the individual is good enough. Do not give it to someone who is anyway struggling with his current job, or is just an okay in his current job. Give someone who's a great guy, and you kind of sort of identify him as a leader of the organization. So that brings me to the topic of succession planning. Identify your talents and then design those jobs. If you give additional responsibilities to everyone, the job rotation or job design will come crashing the next day. As an HR professional, never bring, I believe that's the way I look at it, that we should not bring destructive practices straight away. If you want to think very radically, we can, but it should be phased out. If you subtly bring destructive practices, at the end of the day, it's people, correct? And the people's sentiments, people's job, disruptive practices suddenly can create a huge difference. Don't bring destructive practices. Bring practices over a period of time. Introduce one practice depending on your priority area, see how it works, and then go to the next one. I've seen managers bringing disruptive practices which has subtracted value than added value to it. So that is what job design is. And finally, equal opportunity. Equal opportunity is important. I told you before, compensation, rewards, recognition should be administered fairly and uniformly. And HR should be perceived to be a team which is fair. Have your reward system which is impersonal. I know it is easier said than done, but if at least I have a process of, if I have a transparent process, if I can declare things publicly, if I can declare, if I have clear communication, and if I have done it in a fair manner, I think even the greatest of pool at times fail to take the best guy from your organization. And what the mind is without fear, let people express feelings. That does not mean that he will disrespect you, but let people express feelings. Skip level is an excellent process where an employee skips his immediate superior and meets his next boss. And it has worked wonders. The next boss was never aware that this guy had so much to offer, because his next in line superior had never told his next boss. And the skip level helped him to understand the immense potential the guy had. Do the skip levels. Skip levels can bring out various issues to the forefront. Skip level can help you to understand and unearth talent within your organization. Skip level helps you for people to express their feelings clearly. But again, expressing feelings does not mean that I will go and disrespect people. I'm very clear about it. Expressing feeling does not mean that I disrespect my superior. But I, as a professional, can always ask him, can always question from him as to what is it that he wants from me. What is it he is looking forward? If he has a difference, he should have the right to put the difference across the table. In a team, I think you should encourage voice of dissent also. Because if you encourage voice of dissent, people would be keen to speak. And only when people are keen to speak, then only you can make a good team, a good strategy. So one of the retention strategies is communication and skip level process. Have the skip level process going. I have done it in my organization and it's good. It's difficult to be implemented. It's difficult more that when the points come out from the skip level, closure of those points, but one has to take that pain because skip level is otherwise a fantastic process. It's a fantastic process for people to understand the next in about the next in line guys. It's a fantastic process for you to showcase your talent to your next higher superiors. It's a forum for where you can share feelings uninhibited manner. And so instead of an organization grapevine which goes people venting out their frustration to the other employee, skip level is it that win frustration. So if you have a skip level, do it, and I'm sure it is doing well. And if you have other thoughts to it, please do let me know when we will have a question. In fact, this is a suggestion from my end, since this is a one-way speaking and it's very new for me. Whenever I have spoken in organizations or wherever, it has always been interactive. Interactive gives you an opportunity to learn. Here, since it's not so, and the questions will only be at the end of the session, please keep all your questions there. I will try to respond, and together we can create a very collaborative and learning environment. In fact, one of the reasons as to why I decided I'll come, though I have my board meeting on Monday, is that I feel this forums always provide you an opportunity to learn from the others too. And in HR, that is so very important. HR is not mathematics that it has been proved in the past and that will stay unchanged. HR is dynamic. While I'll share my practices, my strategies, I'll also like to learn from you what you have done and where you have failed. I know there is a boundary of time, but we'll still see how we can make it. This is the same thing. Develop ability, give discretionary effort, and aspire for more. Without significant ability, aspiration, and engagement, employees will not excel in their jobs. You see three boxes. One is aspiration. I have an aspiration to be X. One is ability, and one is engagement. My aspiration and ability, if they match, nothing like that. But most of the time, one is greater than the other. My aspiration is greater than the ability, or if my aspiration is greater than my ability, it's not such a bad, it's a bad story, but still. But imagine my ability is greater than my aspiration. I am a low aspiring guy. Then what happens to me? I have great ability. So what, boss? You need to aspire also. And third is engagement. So aspiration is on one block, ability is on one block, engagement is on the other block. The three, when they converge, gives you a sweet spot. This is the sweet spot where you want. So what is that sweet spot? That sweet spot comprises of engaged people working to the best of their ability and in a work which is meeting their aspiration. Very, very difficult. I repeat for the sake of clarity. Engaged employees working in a role which fits which matches their ability and takes care of the aspiration. Excellent. That is our model. We all want that. I want a guy who is good enough. I want to give him opportunity where he feels that his ability and his aspiration are are taken care of. On the top of it, engagement model is extremely important. So if I have a box where all the three are taken care of, I am done. I am done for an organization. But for how many such employees, if I do a mapping, I'll be able to do this. Let's do that. But if I've done this, I've done. When people stay in an organization, I'm sure there's some coincidence. Some of the boxes meet each other, but all three boxes meeting each other at that particular point is kind of aspirational for as of now. So this is what I had to speak about. I know I had kept it 1 hour. I deliberately kept it 1 hour. I know there's a 1.5 hour session. The reason why I've kept it 1 hour is that all of you have been aware of various practices in your organization. And I have shared some of the practices which I have done. Rewards, skip level, R&R, incentive, non-monetary awards, variable pay. Create a variable pay, give a variable pay which really differentiates the best from the mediocre. don't be socialist in when you give rewards. If someone has done well, if your appraisal system is fine, please go ahead and do it. If you don't do it, you might keep the non-performer with your organization, but your performer will leave. So if you first develop a PMS, and I believe this statement, if you have a good PMS, it solves 80% of the organization's problem. If you have a good KRA exercise, it means people are aware of the role. If you have a good KRA exercise, you can do your appraisal very clearly, because a good KRA would mean the targets are quantifiable, targets can be clear, targets are understood. If you have a good KRA exercise, if you have a good reward, and if you have a good KRA, and if your PMS is good, trust me, my colleagues in HR, everything would be good. In M Junction, we had been doing this KRA exercise for a number of years. We have been in existence for the last 16 years. But this time we have taken a consultant to work on the KRA based on the role, not on the individual, and that's the way it is. So a role can have multiple presence in various parts of the country, but the role is the role, same role. Depending on where he is, the expectations of the role in terms of the targets might be different. So what we have done is we have done a role-based KRA, and then we have mapped individuals against those various roles. The advantage is, and we have tried to tighten the KRA. We have tried to tighten the KRA. We have got a sign off from everyone. The idea is not to sort of, I'll punish by giving a tight KRA. The idea is that if I do not have a good KRA, I end up ranking everyone well, because I know my KRA is so bad. If a guy comes back and challenges me, I'll have to run for covers. So the best way is de do sabko ek. But that's not a solution. You did it because your KRA was not done well. You know, if you have to penalize someone by giving him a 5, if 1 is best and 5 is the worst, he might come back and say, boss, why did you give me a 5? So you then what you do, since you do not have a good KRA, what we tend to do is de do teen de do. What are you doing? We are breeding inefficiencies. And if you are breeding inefficiencies, you expect your best guy to stay. He will not. Because after all the good work, you have given him a 2, and you have given that guy a 3, because you know the KRA was very nebulous, and he can challenge you at every point of time. You don't have an answer to that. So have a good KRA, have a clear KRA, and then you can do the real kind of rating, where you can ask questions and you have the responses to defend those questions. Because if you give an average guy a 3 and your best guy a 2 or a 1, even then he sees that boss, wo to kuch kaam hi nahi kiya, usko 3 de diya. But you know why you have given him 3, na? Because you do not have your KRA might be slightly nebulous. So I believe the heart of an organization, the heart of a talent retention strategy is performance management. From performance management, I come to my various levers, which comes to compensation, increment, variable. So that's one piece of it. The other piece is career development and job rotation, learning and development. Job rotation is important. It helps people to learn. Learning and development helps people to grow. And the third lever is you give them rewards, spot rewards, non-monetary rewards. And the fourth one is allow them to feel empowered, allow them to raise questions, allow them to be discerning, allow them to question. Again, questioning or be discerning does not mean that the person would lack respect for you. Allow them to ask questions, organize skip levels, allow people to get a hang of the talents which is residing in the organization. I think if we have done this basic steps well, we can have a good talent, a wonderful talent retention strategy. Through that, I'll not be able to stop the pull in the market. The pull in the market will always be there. But what I am really trying to intervene and address is the push. Because people leave most of the time because there's a push within the organization which tells him, boss, look for other opportunities. It's not the pull. So this is what I had to say. Please come with your questions. Let's have a good discussion. I'll clarify my points. I'll learn from you, and let's understand that.